iPhones now.
Okay, appreciate folks joining today. And we have, after 3 weeks away, as I said earlier, I hope I remember how to do this. A couple months ago, did a talk about preserving home movies, and mentioned back then I was just getting into it, waiting for my new scanner, which has happily arrived. And I'm learning out just how much I don't know about this particular subject. So again, I'll just give the caveat. There are people that know far, far more about doing this than I do. But I wanted to just give people an encouragement to do it because there's some amazing free software. And the word free is always good. In this particular case, free software that does amazing stuff. I mean, better than some of the paid stuff. And I just wanted to go through and try to encourage people to preserve the bits of their family memories. My parents took a lot of movies, I think from when I was about 2 years old up to maybe when I was about 8 years old. And I think the camera either broke or my parents got tired of it. But I have reel after reel after reel of home movies. And a number of years ago, Carol and I sat down with a splicer and took all the little 50-foot reels, 3 movies, 3 minutes each, and put them into chronological order by year. And then I just took one of these off, had it professionally digitized, and wasn't real thrilled with the results. And I also wasn't real thrilled with the price. So I kind of stuck things off to the side. And a number of years, about 2-3 years ago, I bought a scanner, started getting into it. It was harder to use than I expected, put it aside. And then like everything else, I saw what you can do online. And that's where this my whole interest came. And I'll be showing you some of it today. When you scan the movie, you're ending up with a scan, as good as it might be, of something that is 50, 60 years old and has 56 years worth of dirt, scratches, color fading. Oh, there's the mail lady. So well, she's 20 minutes early today. Carol was taking care of it. Let me close the door 1 second. As the escape artist flees to the truck. So anyway, I had started looking into this, and I kind of got disappointed seeing the results. I had scanned the stuff; it looked okay, but it just didn't look right. And then I started seeing some pictures people had put online. That how did they do this? I mean, the video, the stuff looked like it was shot yesterday. And the software we'll be talking about today does some amazing stuff as far as restoring colors, taking out dirt and scratches, stabilizing it. I recently did some films for Ken, and we were talking about how your camera jitters a little, and sometimes it's the photographer moving it a little, but sometimes it's just a film just going through the camera, just moving a little up and down or back and forth, because the things that we're using back then weren't built to like NASA type tolerances. They had a lot of slop in them, and the cameras would go. And then when you're watching it, we have to realize if you're using an 8mm film, how small those images are. And if you're looking at it on a 60-inch TV, it's literally blown up something like 64,000 times. So a tiny little movement that you don't notice watching on a movie screen, with poor optics across a living room, when you're sitting there on an HD TV and it's been shot in 2K and it moves just a little and it goes down just a little and up a little and left a little, it gets real annoying. Luckily, there's amazing stuff that goes off and stabilizes that. So what I had done was I had sent out my stuff to a professional place, came back, and I wasn't really wowed with it. And I had recently done some films for Ken, and he was very nice in sending me some before and after comparisons of what he had done to get them done professionally as well. That is, and I'll be showing those in just a second. To get your film into the computer, obviously you need a scanner, either your scanner or a professional scanner. And there are all types of professional scanners. There's some that do it, for the film industry that are just wonderful. There's all sorts of people that have really good scanners. Then there's what I call the big box shops, where you go and you drop your film off at a Costco, or you see there's ones that sell online called Legacy Box, where people use the Kodak name. And Kenneth had used one of these, where you take your films, stick them in a box, and they'll do as many as you can fit in the box or up to some number for a certain price, scan them and send them all back to you. Well, let me share screen and show you what you get with some of that. So share screen. Okay. So hopefully that all shows now. People seeing pictures of the fire trucks?
Mm-hmm.
On the left is the first version that the company did, and on the right is the version I did for Kenneth. And I'll just also give the caveat that as I keep learning more. So I use one piece of software on Kenneth's side here. You notice there's too much blue and things like the fence rail and some of the cars. As life has it, after I did all the films, put them in a box and mailed them back to Kenneth, I found yet another piece of software which is even better. So, you know, that's the trouble. I now find myself doing some of these movies 8-10 times. It goes, ooh, pretty, new toy. But if you look at the one on the left, the framing is way off. You know, you don't see the whole image of the truck. The whole cab is cut off. And oh, Ken's on. Maybe you'd like to just mention, Ken, the little anecdote that came up when I shared this online.
That was kind of funny. Bill asked if he could just show it in one of his scanner groups that discusses this kind of thing, and this guy in the group got all excited and asked him, "Can Bill put me in contact with Ken and ask if we can, you know, buy the film or just use a clip of it or whatever?" This is the only vintage film of this. What do you call it? Nash. I forget the model, but this specific model had been adapted for use in amusement parks only. And this guy apparently is just like, that's one of his life's works, is to do the history of this particular model. And he'd never seen a film of one actually in action. So it was kind of fun talking to him. I mean, you know, it's a very short clip. The thing just drives around the corner or whatever. So it's nice. I don't think he's going to be able to build a full documentary around it, which is what he wants to do. He said he'd interviewed a bunch of people that were involved in producing and using these things over the years, and that someday he might get around to it. But it was kind of an interesting thing. You know, it's a tiny little fraction of all the videos that we went through. And that was probably the most fun part, just because the guy got so excited about it.
Yeah, I posted it online. I think 8 minutes later, I'm getting this urgent email from this guy. You know, he's doing, as Kenneth mentioned, some documentary and amusement park ride vehicles, and you know, came across this. I think it's called a Fairmont. I think that's what he said. It was a Nash Fairmont, something like that. But anyway, here's just one example that Kenneth sent me. And let me just go to another one. Is this you, Kenneth, shooting down things?
Let's see. Yes, that was also I was in the fire engine. It was a little smaller back then, but
well, even there, your eyes was on space. But again, if you look at what they did on the left, the framing's off. The focus is so soft that the scratches don't show, which now, unfortunately, now that I've mailed the film back to Kenneth, I found out how to get the scratches out. But just look at the color rendition and the framing. And again, this is what these people turn out. What they do is they basically just put everything on a projector on a scanner, and they don't change anything. They don't, you know, change the f-stop settings. They don't change the lighting. They don't change anything. Crank it out and mail it back to you. So you end up with a whole different look of things. And it's really unfortunate, because if they had just done it right, and you know, it's so much easier to fix some of these things yourself now. So here's a raccoon going upside down. This one, just look at the difference in the bird on the left and the bird on the right.
these are all in Birch Hill Game Farm, for those of you who might have grown up in the Northeast.
Yeah, I get a kick out of shooting everything through the, through the chain link fence. I think my parents went to the same photography school yours did, Kenneth. So what I did then, let me just stop sharing here for 1 second. Okay.
Bill, you said you now know how to get scratches out. Is that software I could run on this end to fix up the ones that we already sent?
Yeah, I'm going to go through some of that. So
Okay.
I said, okay, I'm not happy with what the big box guys are doing. So let's see if we can find some other ways to do it. And I mentioned some of this stuff on a prior talk, but let me just go and grab another picture here. There's like everything else, you can go crazy. There's scanners that cost $100,000. And their scanners here we're going to see cost a couple $100, and that's what we're going to look at right now. So for folks that don't have unlimited money or a crazy amount of films, this is the Wolverine Movie Pro, Movie Maker Pro. It costs for retails $3.99 on Amazon, BH Photo, and a number of others. It's a small unit built in China. The first unit only did smaller reels at 720p. This one does them at 1080p, and it does a reasonable job. I'm going to show you some videos shot on one of these units. This was recently replaced, or not replaced, but a newer scanner from another company came out. It's called the Kodak Reels, REELZ. And by the way, for the when I put this chat online, I'm going to put a page on the Zoom link with all the information for the products, where you can get them, where you can download the software, that sort of thing. So if anybody wants to take notes, great. But I am going to put more details on a follow-up page. The Kodak Reels unit, again, somebody else makes a Kodak license their name to it. Looking at comparisons that people have done online, it does a very nice job. Same price, $3.99 on Amazon as the Wolverine. But the Wolverine suffers, and I'll show you in some examples, with it oversaturates reds and yellows. The Kodak Reels is much better. The downside to these units is that everything is pretty much fixed. You can vary the brightness a bit by adjusting the lamp, but you can't vary things like the f-stop. So you can have issues with things blowing out the highlights in films, but they do a pretty good job. Again, if you look at what a professional place takes to go off and do this, if you send out a 3-inch reel, it's going to cost you around 20 to 25 bucks to get it done. So if you have 20 reels of your film to do, one of these units pays for itself. And what a lot of people frankly do is they buy one of these, scan all their family movies, and then sell the unit used on eBay or something, and for $200, and amortize their expenses pretty well. I decided, and I've played with the Wolverine. I had gotten one. I've had friends that are sitting here. I've done some comparison pictures on. I went a different route, and I went with something called the RetroScan Universal Mark II. As Carol can safely attest, it's a huge unit. It sits on top of the filing cabinet next to my desk, but it really goes through. I don't have 35 millimeter movies that I'm looking to scan, but if I did, it would do it. So if I can pull up here, I have, let me see if I can get the, I want to stop sharing this screen. And I want to just start this movie real quick. And then I have to remember to turn the sound on. Show you what this scanner supposedly does. Okay, so let me just share screen. And I have to remember to turn on the sound. Share screen, share sound. Okay, so let me just get this movie here. Here's a little promo they made, and it will show you just how easy it is to do it. Oops, click share, Bill. it's real easy peasy, right? You just stick the film in the scanner and out comes the final product. It's not quite that way. If you look at the video at the very end of it, he mentions that they did some processing in, I think, Adobe Premiere and something called Neat Video. And that was the first piece of software that I came across, and Neat Video is really neat. It's not free. I think it ran about $40 or so, but it does a very nice job of taking out film grain and scratches. The trouble again is you have your little 8mm image and you blow it up, all the grain blows up with it. So all the texture of the film is in there, but every little piece of dirt, I mean, minuscule little pieces of dirt now look giant because they're on a 60-inch screen. Neat Video does a really nice job, and that's the way most of the software we'll be talking about does it, where it takes a frame, takes the next frame, and takes a third frame and figures out, okay, what appeared on frame 2 that wasn't on frame 1 or on frame 3? That must be dirt, must be a scratch. I'm going to take it out. And it does a really nice job of doing it. It's frankly a fantastic piece of software to do it. Then I found out later, after I paid the $30, $40 or whatever it was, that you can actually do it for free, even better. But Neat Video is really nice because you can use it as a plug-in to a whole variety of programs, whether it's Premiere, Vegas, Final Cut Pro, a whole bunch of different ones that they give you this thing for. So what I then started doing was, okay, looking at the films, you have to what you call scan them. But before we even scan them, one of the things that a lot of these places you send them to don't do is you need to clean them. There's a whole bunch of cleaning products that you can use to take off dirt and scratches. There's one called Film Renew, Everfilm, a whole bunch of them. I use something called PEC 12, PEC 12, and they make little special cleaning pads. And basically wind the film through the cleaning pads and take off the dirt. And I don't think I have them anymore. I sent some pictures to Kenneth of just how much dirt came off of his movies in doing it. And what I also do when I'm doing the cleaning is look for splicing. And somebody just today was posting a picture of splices. Let me pull this one up and share it here real quick. This is the sort of thing a lot of home movies, particularly end up with. This was old Kodak press tape splices, which I'm lucky mine don't end up that way. But some of the movies I've bought from people for the World's Fair and Disneyland, they've come spliced with Scotch tape. I've actually came across one where somebody stapled the film together where it had broken. Those are not things I want to run through my scanner. So one of the first things that I do is I clean all the film and I put it, take out the splices. I have my handy dandy little Kodak 8mm and Super 8mm splicer, and Kodak got out of the business, but a guy bought the press tape business from them, and he still makes brand new press tapes. And he also sells leader and reels and all sorts of fun stuff. So again, put a link into his site. So you go through and you scan all this, you clean it and scan it, and now you end up with a movie that is a pretty good digital representation of the film. But there's where you get into needing to do something with it. They come out dirty, they come out scratched, no matter how much you clean them, and they come out faded. So let me just see what I have here lined up for you in the way of some sample videos. I just close some other windows I don't need here. Let's see, stuff for today. Let's see. Before I do that, let me just go here to, where did this video go? Okay. Let me rewind this here real quick and then share it. Trying to work on two different screens here. It's just a little bit more of a challenge than I thought. Let me get rid of this one. I think I'm done with the still pictures, so I can get rid of that. 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to go again, share screen. We don't have any sound. This again, I'll give you an example of, this was a movie somebody else shot on a Wolverine. And again, it does a nice job, but you can see how red or how orangey the grass and the faces are. This is not great when it comes out of the Wolverine, but you can go and you can do some post-production on it. Here's another Wolverine, one that has been adjusted a bit. Again, this is 8mm. This is actually done right off the unit. It didn't have a lot of shaking or anything like that in it. So again, if you want to spend the $400, there is the cheaper one, $50 less or so. That's the 720p, but you can get some pretty nice footage out of it. But then you go and you say, okay, when I want to go and I start looking into things, let me pull up a comparison of one here. I wanted to go and take a Disneyland video that they sold all the 8mm stuff, souvenir films. Here's an example of one in progress here. It should pop up. On the left side of the screen is the original version. I split it down the middle, and you can see how the color has been restored. This, by the way, this blob in the middle of the film, that was the trouble. Somebody went and bought this at Disneyland, and Disneyland misprinted about 8 feet of the film in it, so didn't they end up with that bad spot. But this was done with a piece of software called Film 9. Free software these people have developed, and I just popped the film in there, ran Film 9, and you can see on the left a lot more dirt and scratches. The color is off. It's still not quite there. What it needs to do is have some sharpening done to it and some enhancement of some of the colors. But again, Film 9 is a great piece of free software. It's what I used on Kenneth's films. And it does a really nice job of basically turning back the clock. The trouble with a lot of the souvenir films is they've gone red. Some of them have gone really, really red. And trying to bring them back is really tough. The Film 9 does a really nice job in doing that. So what I then did, let me take another one here where I took them out of Film 9 and I stuck them into a piece of software where I had to pay for it, Adobe Premiere. But Adobe Premiere let me really increase the saturation on some of the colors on a film. So let me go through this one here. We can actually feel like the projector's going. Everybody hear the clicking, clicking, clicking noise in the background? And again, this was red. It was adjusted in Film 9, free piece of software. And then I put it into Adobe Premiere to basically pump up the saturation. Now you can see some things are not entirely correct. The sky is a little more greener than bluer, although maybe that's the way the sky was in '67, I think, when this was shot with our California smog down here. But I thought folks might just enjoy a trip back to Disneyland too, looking at Nature's Wonder Railroad. I was still there when I went to work for Disney, and it was a great spot on days off to go walking out there and just enjoying it. I took some really neat pictures out there of all the figures and animals when the train wasn't running. But again, looking at it now, the sky, again, I need to get better in fixing skies and some of these things. But this was totally, bright red. Basically, the cyan layer of the film, produce the 3 different layers of chemical dyes. And when 2 of them fade faster than others, and things tend to go and become just magenta. Tom Sawyer Island before it became the Pirate Island. The lawyers made them take out things like the balancing rock because people got their fingers stuck under it. I haven't added sounds to the Disney ones yet because if I share them on Facebook or something, I don't want the Disney lawyers coming after me because you know, on some of my other movies I'll show on a World's Fair one, I put other music to it. But, you know, for a Disney film, putting non-Disney music to it just didn't seem right. That's another nice thing Premiere does, just as while we're watching this. It has a feature that it will take music and add stock music to your movie of varying lengths. So I had shared with Kenneth a movie that was done at Lake George, and they would go to Fort Ticonderoga, and then they would go to Storybook Land, and then they would go to Frontier Town, a bunch of different places. And I was able to change the music in between each section. And one section might be 3 minutes and 18 seconds, and another might be 2 minutes and 12 seconds. It's really neat. You can just say, give me music that fits between here and there, and it automatically, you know, adjusts it, makes it short or long enough to fit in there. So that's one Disney souvenir film. Folks like to see another Disney souvenir film. People mention that they like trains, so let's take a look at a train. What's interesting in doing this is that some of these films are all different lengths, and you know, you buy the same film, and one of them is 3 minutes and 50 seconds, the next one is 2 minutes and 45, but they charge you the same price. So again, this was bright red. This, I used a product called Avisynth, and that's another free piece of software. It's Avisynth, and it does an amazing job of dirt scratch reduction. Didn't need to do much in stability correction on these films because you know, Disney shot with tripods and that. But again, I'll put the links on there. Avisynth is a script-based product. Film 9 I mentioned earlier has a really nice GUI front end, and basically what Film 9 is a GUI front end to Avisynth. So it doesn't let you do everything that Avisynth lets you do, but it lets you do it easier. The script is really, trying to learn the Avisynth script is, I think it'd be easier to learn, you know, speak Sanskrit or something. But there's a guy online, uses the name Video Fred, that wrote some amazing scripts, again, gives them away for free. And I will produce links on them in the recap of this video. And you just basically only have to go into the script with a text editor and change a very, very few things. The name of the file that you want converted, the speed that it was shot at, you know, whether it's 18 frames per second, 24 frames per second, that sort of thing. And you know, how big you want the film to turn out. Avisynth runs about 1 second per frame in my computer. So if you have a movie that's 13,000 frames, it can take 13,000 seconds. You can do the math. Film 9 is much faster, but it's not anywhere near as robust in taking out the scratches and that. But again, to do all this with absolutely free software to me is this is what I was looking for when I got into the you know, trying to do my own movies, and that's what I'm going to be using steadily going forward. Avisynth can also be a little bit of a pain to install, as poor Carol knows. Yesterday I was trying to move it from my old computer to my new computer, and it worked perfectly in the old computer. Did not work on the new computer until I finally found buried in it an obscure little switch that needed to be addressed, and finally got it running. So let me see what else we've got here in some videos. Come here, my friend. Okay. Here's one. Again, give you an idea again of what we can do. I did this with Avisynth again. This was a Disney World video, souvenir video, and it had gone not completely red. This one was about 50% red. I had seen somebody else, there's a site Retro WDW, that had restored it, and I was trying to figure out how they got it as good as they got it, and then I was able, frankly, I think, to get a little bit better, other than the green skies. Again, none of these are finished products, they're work in progress, and I have to get on to how to do selective changes. The trouble is that if I go in and want to address the screen, the sky in one section, you've got to break it into other sections so that you don't turn everything else that green into that blue. And it just takes time to do it, and I'm still just learning all of this this nonsense myself. But this was fun. Back in this was shot in 1974, I think it was the date on the leader. So you're going to see people were commenting about the character. And I'm going to go to some amateur video or amateur 8mm film in a moment. People commenting how things have changed so much from the in-park experience now with the way the characters were able to wander through. Out here, they're taking a tour on the swan boats. We'll see more of them. There was a attraction that lasted for about 10 years in the park, put in a real hurry as an overflow attraction thing. How do we get, huge crowds we didn't expect when the park opened? Let's put in something and take advantage of the moat around the castle. But look how empty it is, huh? Mr. Johnson taking us for our flight to the moon. Always got a kick out of this. First we went to the moon, and then we had to go to Mars. The moon wasn't sexy enough anymore, so now we had to go to Mars. If we had smell-o-vision, I could add the smell of diesel or gasoline engines here. The smell of 1,000 golf carts all going around. The sadly departed Skyway, and the even sadder departed Nautilus, 20,000 leagues under the sea. And this is where all the scanners have some challenges with some of the contrast in here. You're going to be seeing a section of the sea monster in a second, and the highlights are pretty bad. But then I looked at the 8mm film on a projector, and guess what? They were really overdone on the film itself. So here again, the real brightness there. A professional $100,000 scanner, I'm sure it could do far, far better on that than than any home unit. So here I'm learning a little bit more about how to get the skies a little bit better. Here we're on the Swan boat. You can see those wheels are moving themselves. The way they did it was they put a magnetic wire down the middle of the track, and the boat had sensors on it that would determine if it was going left or right, and it would just steer itself as it went around the track. When it failed, the tour guide in the back was able to go and put it back onto course. So it was pretty interesting, neat technology that they had done back then. Trying to figure out maybe Brock or people know why they did it, because it would have been a lot cheaper just to have somebody steer the boat. But it was kind of a neat thing done. This 64 World's Fair footage ended up in here in the souvenir ride film of Disney World. And you can tell us from the 64 World's Fair in a moment when you see people in heavy coats wearing it, going through it. It actually wasn't even at the 64 World's Fair. It was shot at the Disney studio on a sound stage. There's the people with the coats. And this shows up in the Disneyland Goes to the World's Fair show. People also online noted that it has footage of the Disneyland pirate ride, not the Disney World one. This is the Mickey Mouse Review, absolutely wonderful audio animatronic show that ended up going off to Tokyo Disneyland, and I believe is no longer there either. It was a real maintenance challenge with all the number of figures, but I thought it was a really great show. This movie does exist in a sound version. I happen to only own the silent version. For silent films, almost none of the home scanning units will do sound. So what you need to do is take it on a projector, scan it, and then sync up the sound track later. or the guy that makes my scanner makes a really nifty little unit that you can shine your projector into a module. It captures the sound and will automatically sync it up with your movie. I don't have enough sound movies to convince myself of spending the money on that. Early teacups without a roof on it at Disney World. Sons of Liberty. That was a neat little thing they did, bringing out boy and girl to be the son and daughter of Liberty and letting them participate in each of the shows, the Hall of Presidents. And that becomes part of the challenge. If you're dialing down the red because the film is over red, you've got to keep the red in the American flag. You've got to keep the red in people's faces. You got to keep the red in, the bricks of the Haunted Mansion, or sorry, the Hall of Presidents. The software, as I mentioned, Avisynth is really good. The script is basically trial and error. I don't know why that's hanging up there for a second. So basically you can try adjusting this, adjusting that, going up or down. What I recommend you do is you try to do it on a 1-minute clip, because if you're trying to do this whole 13, I think this runs just short of 12 minutes. And if it takes 2 hours to do it every time you do it, you don't want to find out, oh, I shouldn't have changed that. So, I would take this thing down, take a minute of it, process it. Okay, how do I bump up the reds? Oops, bumped them up too far, too low, whatever to get it back. But again, this is all done with totally free software and the help of some really wonderful hobbyists. Yesterday, when I was trying to figure out why I couldn't get Avisynth to work on my new computer, I went online, posted a question. I think within 30 minutes I had back, gee, that's a tough one. Have you thought about this? Somebody else came back with something else. They didn't have the right answers, but they suggested a place to look. And I looked and I was able to find it and fix it. So it's a really great community of people. And it's on a board with a very scary name. People tell you to go to a board called Doom 9. And you figure, oh man, that's got to be Virus City or something. I don't know how they picked the name Doom 9, but Doom 9 happens to be absolutely astonishing bunch of video, film restoration type people. And they've written all sorts of scripts and filters to do things like, somebody will say, oh, somebody who shot a video and it's tilted 2 degrees to the left. And it's really annoying looking at the water being tilted 2 degrees to the left. So somebody will go up and write a filter that will go and change your film and tilt it 2 degrees to the right. And then somebody else comes up with another version. Oh, I put a variable in it that you can change it X degrees left or right. And there's a whole amazing list of filters for things that you can do on all this stuff. Again, the language of it is mind-boggling, trying to figure it out. But that's the nice thing, that the other people are out there to help you with it. Or in many cases, somebody else has already solved the problem before and been happy to share their work with you. Anybody want to sing with the birds? You're all muted, so you can sing and nobody will know it. And what I found in doing this was that in some cases, Avisynth does have an issue with some particular types of scenes that film 9 did not. So what I did was, and I didn't do it on this particular film, I did it on one of the 64 World's Fair, was I just took the Avisynth version, I took the film 9 version, and I spliced them together. I also, on some cases, on the scanner, trying to decide, do you shoot with autofocus, auto gain on or not? Auto gain will adjust the light up and down, trying to figure out what's the optimum for a particular scene. In some cases, it's really good. In other cases, it will blow out some other things. So what I did in some cases, and again, I'll only do this on my home movies if it's worth the time, I shot it with 0 gain, the gain stepped up, the gain on auto gain, and took the 3 versions and just said for this particular scene, which was the best version. In editors like Adobe Premiere, and you can do it in many of the others. Pinnacle Studio is another really good editor that I really like. You can take 2 layers and drop them on top of each other and then blend between them. So if you have one layer that film that's really overexposed in one area and underexposed in another, you can give basically the equivalent of high dynamic range processing by taking the 2 videos, dropping on top of each other, and fading between the 2 of them to try to take out some of the overburn and correct it. So it's fun to see what you can do. You can see here, you know, the thing has some issues with the lights around the guys going around, but for somebody else's souvenir video, I'm only going to go so far and work on it. We get to the end of that one. Let's see what else we can just show some examples here with. Oh yeah, here, let me go up here. I think I had, yeah, here's a comparison of a reel that I did again. Just bring this one up. We're going to start at the beginning. Avi-Synth version on the right. Is the beginning here did not turn out at all like that. Blue is just wrong. So I mentioned it has some issues with things that are, you know, in certain areas. The one on the left is the raw scan. You can see the difference in the skyline, you know, how it corrects it to a very nice blue. But look at all the dirt and scratches on the left that are just gone on the one on the right. The vertical lines are almost all gone. The film grain is taken out. Look at that shot. Again, totally free that you can do this to turn that version out on the right. Then what I did was I decided to have some fun and do a little bit more with it. So let's look at a finalized version of this. Hopefully the sound is still sharing. Do I have sound? No, the sound's not turned on this particular one. Anyway, here's the final version that I ended up with. I had done this in film 9. I have to go back and now do it in Avi-Synth, so the sky is not quite the right blue. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I do have this online. For some reason, the copy that I grabbed here, let's maybe this one has a sound to it. Try this here. Hearing the sound? Anybody give me a thumbs up if you hear the sound? Okay. Again, this is where you can take the free music in Pinnacle and just stick it in here to match the video. If you're watching the video and it's just silent, you're kind of losing something. But in some cases, I can add the sound of a projector where right here would just listen to the music. Isn't it neat to end on the smoke ring? Something that we don't see too often in things. So I'll just grab something else here real quick. This is a reel that I've just been working on that I haven't finished yet. But again, take a comparison of the original footage. This is Disneyland, not a souvenir, shot in 1970. So again, on the left is the raw version, and I'll go through the full version in a second, but just look at the difference in the scratches and that sort of thing and how it smooths it out on the right-hand side. Now, I wish I got paid per copy of AviSynth that people downloaded, because I know I'm touting it really extensively, but it makes all the difference in the world. Look at the stability of the camera on the left shaking around, and the scenes of the footage on the right. So rather than go and look through all the comparison, let's just go back here and enjoy a trip back to Disneyland in 1970. Again, I've not gone and edited out bad splices or overexposed sections or whatever, but it's hard to believe, man, 52 years ago. I mean, doesn't 1970 seem like it was just around the corner? Now it's around the corner, down the block, and 2 exits down the interstate. It's really changed. This is all for all of our Disneyland fans. We can also go to Disney World and visit that if you'd like, or we can visit a whole bunch of places. Now my challenge is the ones that I had done in film 9. Now I've got to go back and redo with AviSynth because they improved scratches in that. One of the things I recommend to anybody doing this is when you scan it, save a copy of your raw file, and you can always go back and reuse that later. It's sort of like, you always save your negatives, right? You don't chuck those out, or hopefully you don't. Too many people did, but by scanning this and keeping a copy, I burn it off to a DVD, or if it's a huge file, a Blu-ray data disc. And then when I stick it into things like the Pinnacle to add the music or whatever, I save all the Pinnacle files as well, so that I can just go and change the video. My system here is pausing for some reason, must be doing something in the background. The video itself does not. But if you save your work files, this is really annoying that it's doing that. We want to see this pig does something really cute here. He just decides he's going to walk away with a stroller. When I was a character at the park, we used to do stuff like that all the time, and just have fun. Today, everything's in controlled environment, and you got to walk up, get your picture taken. But you could go off into the park, and you could have all sorts of fun. Taking people's hats off, or pretending you were going to steal their purse or whatever, and everybody got a kick out of it. Today, if you took somebody's purse and ran away, even dressed as a chipmunk, they'd probably be freaking out. Pirate ship. How many people went and had a tuna fish sandwich there on the pirate ship over the years? It was a great spot to go. Now, some scratches that just can't get out all the way. They're just way too big, way too thick, that sort of thing. There is some software that you can go and just like the healing brush in Photoshop, you can take the scratches out. But since it starts at $10,000 for the software, I have not gone that route. I will not be going that route in my my home movie crazes. So for occasional scratches, I can occasionally live with them. But again, this one was like everything else, 52 years old, had seen his share of dirt, scratches, that sort of thing. Oh, that's one thing with the different types of scanners. The Wolverine and the reels use a traditional claw and sprocket mechanism like the your home movie projector does. So it uses a little finger that comes up, grabs the hole in the reel of the film, pulls it along, and then photographs it. The Wolverine and the reels take images at 2 frames per second, which seems like a really fast, right? I mean, wow, and every second is taking 2 pictures and processing it. The trouble is that there's a lot of images in a movie. Something like this one had 30,000 image frames in it. To do it at 2 frames per second takes a lot of time. The Wolverine also, the reason I don't like the Wolverine or reels for my work is that it does a very high level of video compression. The cameras in it were not built specifically for those units. They were developed for dash cams, where dash cams don't particularly need the ultimate of high resolution, but you want to capture many hours of footage as you're driving. So they do an awful lot of video compression on those units, and it's not something you can dial down. On my unit, you can go for totally uncompressed AVI files. You can also export them into JPEG or TIFF files. And that's something I've been experimenting with, that Photoshop can do a really nice job of restoring faded images. So sometimes what I've done is I've exported it as a image file, bring them into Photoshop, write a batch folder that just goes and processes, color corrects, walk away, let the computer run overnight because it may take 8 hours or something to do it. But then you can reassemble them back into a movie with some superior color correction as well. But the scanner that I have doesn't use any sort of claw mechanism. It basically pulls the film through from the supply, the take-up reel, pulls out the supply reel, and you go through without anything that's going to come and punch holes in it, hopefully not scratch it. I also use a silicone spray to clean the unit, keep all the wheels and pulleys, with a light level of silicone on them, so that the film doesn't get scratched or damaged doing that. So again, things you learn over time. Oh, there's our pop-up stage in Tomorrowland. The Tomorrowland the way I knew it, and the Tomorrowland the way I liked it, as opposed to the thing they've done today. Mary Blair's mural, sadly covered over. Again, some of the pesky lines that show up from time to time. The original of this was, as you saw in the comparison I did, way, way, way worse scratched. And it's really neat. Avicenth uses Avicenth is a script writing language. It uses another program called Virtual Dub or Virtual Dub 2. And Virtual Dub is, again, free. You can get it, and you can get this free plugin that comes with it called D-Shaker. And it does a really neat job of taking the jitter out. I've got to adjust there the wheel on the blades on the wheel going around were too digitized, and that's some of the problems where you got to look what you're doing, cut back the footage, and splice in better footage from a different one. So again, this is a work in progress, but it does a really neat job with the deshaking. We'll take something like here and so say a pulley that the people walking past. It will analyze, it goes up, it goes down, it goes left, and it goes right, and then we'll figure out how do I move the frame before or after it up to keep everything in level so it's not all jittering all over the place. Again, it can take a little bit of time to do it, But a lot of this stuff, you can put it on the computer, runs in the background. Some of it's not so intensive that it seizes up your computer for anything else. Or you can just let it run overnight, come back in the morning, and it's all processed. So in this one, this was faded to red. It was really grainy. It was jittery all over. Ran this for 2.5 hours on this particular film, and it came out good. As I said, I do have to go back and fix some things like that wheel on the tree house. That will be about a 10-minute thing to go and splice it in, get it done. No particular problem. And that's why, again, you always save your original, because you can do other things with them. So we're out on Tom Sawyer's Island, one of the peaceful parts of the park. Then you get an interesting conundrum. What if you're on a bouncing bridge and you've got your de-shaking software turned on, and you have to be careful that you don't take out the shake of the bridge through camera trickery. So you have to be careful when you turn things on and turn things off. With most of these things, like in Absynth, you can say, apply this filter between this frame and that frame, and don't apply it between that frame and this frame. So you just have to go through with your editing software, write down all your frame numbers and say, okay, when I get to this frame, drop back the amount of de-shaking that you're doing in this particular area. Do some other things. Another thing that these tools are good at is frame interpolation. In this particular case, this film was shot originally at the standard 8 speed of 18 frames per second. If you go off and you watch it at 18 frames per second, it looks a little, not choppy is the right word, but you can definitely sense that it's not, live footage. You can set the program to do interpolation, and here in this particular section, the interpolation's gone a little wild, but you can say, crank the frame rate up to 30 frames per second, excuse me, or crank it up to 60 frames per second. Some people go really crazy. They say crank it up to 120 frames per second. But what it does there is it takes a frame, takes the next frame, and then digitally figures out what has changed between the two frames and creates a new pseudo frame in between to give you that feeling of motion. So again, if you're shooting at 18 frames a second and you're taking it up to 30, it's creating almost 50% new frames. It works well unless there's violent changes between the scenes. So here, for example, where the car is bouncing around on the track, it's doing too many things at once. It's trying to stabilize the movement of the car on the track. It's trying to interpret the extra frames, and it comes over that digitalization. So I will go back and I will, we've left Disneyland and we're at Marineland. So we're going to just stay at Marineland for a moment. For the folks that don't know it, Marineland was a aquatic park here in California. We had two of them. We had SeaWorld down in San Diego, and we had Marineland and Rancho Palos Verdes. And it was a really neat park. You had Corky and Orky, the killer whales out there. Really nice place to go to. And then one night it shut down and disappeared literally overnight. I think it was Hardcore Brace Jovanovic bought it and ran it for a few years, and then shut it down and basically wanted the land for real estate development. It's now an estate or a fancy development called Tyrannia or something like that out there. But it was a really neat spot. This is the small stage there, but they had a very large amphitheater, had underwater viewing tanks. You could go out and watch the killer whales. They had beluga whales. They had all sorts of sea lions, dolphin acts, that sort of thing. And it was a real shame. Like I said, literally vanished overnight. There was no chance to go and say, hey, it's closing. Let's go and have one last visit. because they wanted to get all the animals out of there in the middle of the night before any of the activists came and started screaming and kept them from shutting it down. We went to Marine Land a number of times. It was always great when you had people from out of town that would like to go. And it was a heck of a lot more convenient to get to than SeaWorld down in San Diego at the end of the guy's video. So let me stop sharing the screen. We can keep, showing the videos. I got more and more, but let me just see if I can answer any questions for anybody. And let me just go through the chat. Your dream job would have been to be the Jungle Book orangutan. You'd like it, Joey, except I'll tell you, those suits are really heavy and they're really hot. You definitely want to do it in winter and you want to do it at night. During the summer, if you do it, you can get about 15 minutes on stage, particularly at Disney World, where I've done them too. You can really get hot, and you take off the head, literally steam comes pouring out of the suit. It's a heck of an experience. But let's see. Let me just go through the questions here. Oh, there's more than I thought. Okay. Comment, and while I'm reading through, if anybody would like to just unmute yourself, you should all be free to do so. Jim Brown, best color correction is Final Cut Pro, Resolve, or other nonlinear video editor. Yeah, that's what I've been doing, Jim. Resolve is another one I want to mention. I'm glad you brought it up. There's a Davinci Resolve, and you can get the free version. And again, free is good, or you can get the paid version. The paid version has a lot more bells and whistles, but even the free version has some amazing tools in it. And I just downloaded it, just learning it. A friend of mine uses Resolve makes a living on doing color editing on it. So I'm just learning Resolve. The trouble, like anything else, you get, wedded to one, and you're trying to find ways to make it do it, and then you realize, oh, here's a better way to do it. But yeah, best color correction, again, that's what I've been trying to do, is use AviSense for the heavy lifting, and then go and fine tuning it in some of the others. Nash Metropolitan, okay? Kenneth's quote there. Roxio Creator Pro. I have Roxio Creator, and I've not done any editing in it. I use all sorts of other parts of the Roxio suite as far as burning DVDs or making copies of things. It probably does a good job. I've just never learned to do any editing in it. For whatever reason, a number of years ago, I had bought Pinnacle Studio, I think on version 8. Now I'm on version 25. So I hate to think how much I've upgraded with that over the years. But again, it just became a user interface that now to me is intuitively obvious. 17 versions ago, I'm sure I was tearing my hair out. And if I had learned Roxio Creator Pro, I would probably be using that one today. Rob Bianco, has anybody seen the Zapruder film where they show the picture exposed between the sprockets? That a lot of people do that. They scan these, like the ones I did for Kenneth. I scanned the whole frame of the film, and there is often images between the sprocket holes that's in there. To me, I tend to crop those back out because I find the sprocket holes, or sometimes you see the words processed by Kodak or Ektachrome or things running up on the left-hand side. I find that annoying. Some people absolutely keep every inch of every frame, and that's why I sent to Kenneth, figuring he can edit it and do whatever he wants. So it's purely a matter of taste, but sometimes there are little bits of things just off to the side, and people do want to see that extra little bit.
Yeah, well, it was fun to see that piece of the film in my case, Bill, but I'll have to say to Rob, there was nothing nearly as historic or as interesting in between the side sprockets in my films versus the Zapruder film.
Yeah. Now, Jim asks again, thoughts of doing everything in Final Cut or Premiere? That's what I've been doing. I edit the stuff, and actually I've been doing a combination of stuff. I've been using either Film 9 or Absynth to clean up the films, but then you end up with a film that's still got flaws in it. For example, the film I did on Lake George, it was, again, not my film, but it was a year I was at Lake George, and both Kenneth and I really enjoy Lake George. If anybody wants a link to the Lake George film, I have it online. But the guy that shot it, his camera, every time he stopped and started the film, it overexposed for about 4 to 5 frames. And the film runs, I think, about 15 minutes. And he would stop and there'd be a flash, and he'd stop and there'd be a flash, and it got really annoying. So I decided I would take out all those individual flashes. And when I did it, I realized later I had taken out 200 of them. So it's like stop, start, cut, splice, start, cut, things I don't want to do again. But that's where, again, I save each of the video reels at every stage of the process. So I have the raw video, I've got the edited video, but now I did that all in Adobe Premiere Pro. I also did some color adjustments and some other odds and ends, but Adobe Premiere Pro does not give me the ability easily to add music to it without editing the music in another program. So like I had done in the New York video, I can say I need a video of this long or whatever. I took the file out of Adobe Premiere Pro and I put it into Pinnacle Studio 25. Again, using a lossless, AVI, uncompressed AVI at each time. And some of these files are getting up in 50, 70 gigabytes in size. Brought it over into Premiere, and now I added the little title that says the 1964 World's Fair, faded into the music. On the other ones I've added an audio track of projector clicking or music, and added that in Premiere, and then saved that out of Premiere. So I ended up, again, burning all the various iterations off to a DVD. So I'm using a bunch of tools. Retro guys have done movie nights on YouTube. Yeah, I'm in touch with them and we're comparing notes. Lickable video screens in Japan. Oh, what is a lickable video screen? Why would you want to lick it? I mean, I've heard of smell-o-vision. Now they're going to have taste-o-vision?
Yeah, I'm not going to answer that, but that is what the press was speculating about. Why?
Why? Okay. Yeah, and Beth was saying, glad the big bad wolf knew to duck. I can safely say from experience, you learn from experience. When you're wearing one of those suits and your head, your eyes are here, but the head is ending up there. There were a number of times I went under something or tried to go under something that, oh, look at that. The chipmunk pretended he walked into that. No, the chipmunk is now going, oh, crapola, that hurt. So, you learn from time. I see you shaking your head, Brock. Did you ever do one of the characters?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which one it was, but one of those with the big head over you. And what I had the problem with is I was talking to a young child, and as you say, your face is down in your chest area of the character. That's what you're seeing, and you forget you've got this giant head. And the mom was standing right behind it, and so I looked down to, like I was gesturing to the child, like I was listening to them, and bonked the mother on the top of the head. So yeah, you have to be careful and beware. Oh, there's more to me than I remember, that I realize, that I'm aware of.
Yeah. I use that to my advantage. I might have mentioned in one of these other chats when we did I did the chipmunk, did the characters the first time when the park was closed for the employee Christmas parties they used to have at Disneyland. They would bring all the management people out, stick you in a suit, and you'd have a good time. And this other guy and I like to do it so much, we would go down on Saturdays and just check out Chip and Dale and go running through the park. And they would tell us the real Chip and Dale are in Tomorrowland, just don't go to Tomorrowland. We'd go through the other parts of the park. Well, one day I had some kid that was just obnoxious, and he's just trying to grab your hand and see how much he can squeeze it to get a reaction out of you. And you're wearing a big padded glove. He can't hurt you. If you start squeezing back, you can really give it to him. And the other thing they would do, again, they would say, oh, are you a boy chipmunk or a girl chipmunk? And try to grab the crotch, right? Well, thank God the chipmunk crotch is several inches below my crotch. But that's where you can come down with the head and bonk them on the head by bending down. And if you get caught, you go, I'm sorry, it was a mistake. I didn't realize that. I don't always wear this head. But when you get a clunked in the head with a chipmunk head, I can safely tell you the guy didn't go and grab any more crotches that day. So let me just go through here. Marineland still exists in Florida. Yeah, they did a whole bunch of things. Other people that are science fiction fans, Marineland, they were always trying to figure out how to make the place go. And for a while, Irwin Allen of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea fame had a display down there. And they actually shot some of the underwater effects for Voyage down there so they could get all the live fish going around and be seen outside the sea view windows. They, as Greg mentions, they tried all sorts of things. They did a Munster overlay, Beverly Hills. They did all sorts of things out there, and it was doing really well. But they decided they could do really well by selling it off for real estate.
Yeah, I can add to that. Disney actually used Marineland when we were doing the Living Seas Pavilion for Epcot Center. We went down there. There was a connection we had with Kim Murphy, who was the overall show producer of the show, and he was a specialist in underwater stuff, marine biology and that sort of thing. At any rate, we went down there at night to do lighting tests because we were trying to determine the depth or the width, shall we say, that the tank needed to be. So from what we referred to as the in-tank module, the module of the sea base that was actually in the tank, if you were there on the observation platform looking out, there's a distance in water where suddenly you can't see anything beyond that point just because of the nature of the water. And so what we wanted to do is have the walls of the aquarium disappear so that you could be looking out at endless sea as far as you knew. And so we used that to do all sorts of, had brought in different lighting to try with so we could do it at night where we didn't have to deal with the daylight, but use their big tank to kind of study depth and see what we had to do. And that's what we used to size the tank for that pavilion.
That's kind of neat. Little bit of tidbit there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Marineland. I was sorry to see it go. I've got some great, pictures from family trips and visits and all there. Well, Kenneth asked, how did I avoid scratching the film when cleaning it? I'm glad he didn't see that I put any new scratches in his film. So basically, there are several ways to do it. As I mentioned, there's some stuff called film renew that are things that go onto the film and kind of coat it. And then some of these things don't dry and you've got to take them back off. Others will dry over time. If you go to a really high-end film transfer unit, they have what they call a wet gate. Wet gates are really good for taking off dirt and filling in scratches. What they do is they put a set of rollers right before it goes through the film gate. Where the film goes through and they put a chemical on it that the rollers will try to grab as much of the dirt off as it goes through, but also puts a layer of liquid onto the film, which is particularly good at vertical scratches to try to fill those in. Those are the hardest ones for software to take out, are the vertical ones. But it's also a kind of noxious chemical. There's all sorts of people divided what this will do to a film 50 years from now, 30 years, whatever. What I did was on these particular ones, I have a film editor, the ones we used to do all the editing of home movies on. I think it's called Copal, C-O-P-A-L. Put the supply reel on the one side and the take-up reel on the other. These PEC 12 pads are made for specifically for film cleaning, and the liquid is film cleaning. It evaporates very, very quickly. So by the time you finish rolling it up, it's pretty much already evaporating. You want to try to do it near an open window if possible, or a ventilated room. But what I did was you can cut the PEC pads up. They come in, I think they're about the size of a pad of Post-it notes. Something like this. Well, of course, it makes it vanish with the filter. About this size. Well, I cut them up into 4 little squares and then soak them in the chemical. Sorry, just picking up something I knocked off the desk. Soak them in the chemical and just wind them slowly by hand through it. And a 50-foot reel it takes about 6 or 8 PEC pads. Again, depending how dirty they are. I keep moistening it. When I see it's dirty, flip it to the other side, do it, throw it away, get another one. So each of your films, Kenneth, that's how I did. I soaked this pad, wound it through the the Copal editor by hand, took all the dirt and crud off, and then basically just wind it back on the other side. The other thing I did on it too was, as I wound it back going to the other side, I used a handy dandy can of compressed air and just lightly just blew it over there. Again, the trouble with it is you can only get one side at a time. If I was really going crazy, I might make several passes at it. But I try to figure out where does most dirt land on this thing. It's going to be in the upper side from the way it goes through the path and everything. So I'm just trying to blow a little air going through it as to try to blow any other dust off. So I'm glad I did no extra damage to your films. I would have been very upset if I had. The PEC, like I said, PEC stuff is pretty decent. It's there's some stuff I have for taking scratches off of 35 millimeter slides and stuff that's really, really noxious, or black and white negatives. There's some of the stuff you almost want to be wearing a hazmat suit working with it. But the PEC 12 is a pretty friendly solution, and if you don't have an open window, the smell will go away in about 5-10 minutes. It's nothing that's going to put you, drive you down to your knees or anything. But I do what I generally do on everything to be 100% safe is I generally scan everything before I've tried cleaning it. Again, I clean the projector or the scanner before every use, every reel of film. I generally will go and scan it to have a worst case scenario. This is the way I got it, in case, God forbid, I scratch or do anything to it, do it. Because again, I can do that on my projector because mine doesn't use sprocket holes, that sort of thing. If you have a Wolverine or anything, you do not want to just put stuff through it until you make sure that it does not have a Scotch tape or stapled splice on it. Like I said, people post things online, oh, I got this one in. People fix it with masking tape. It's just, I haven't yet to get duct tape. I haven't found that one yet. But, some of the stuff, and sometimes people do it, they try to do an okay job of, putting the two ends together, butting it up and splicing it. Other times they just lay it on top of each other. So you got double width of the film and the Scotch tape that goes over it, and no splice hole, sprocket holes whatsoever. So you can imagine the projectors just choke and gag at those. Does camera shake have any consequences like cropping? Yeah, you have an option in most of these, Greg, where you can either go and have it where it adds extra borders to it and then the film moves around and the borders are kind of moving with it. Or you can go off and you can say, I'm going to zoom in, electronically zoom into it so you don't end up with borders. I tend to go the latter, zoom it in, no borders, because when we're watching it, as the left and right side are just moving and it's adding a little extra little black at the top or bottom, I find that, I find that distracting myself. Again, it's something you can set. If you're using this deshaker within Virtual Dub, you can do all sorts of parameter settings and do it. Same thing within Absynth. In the script, you can say, do I want borders? Do I not want borders? I particularly don't want borders, but you've got to be careful there. Again, you saw it on the scenes of the cars on the Autopia. He's in a moving car, and if you remember the Autopia cars, they bounce around. Well, it means that everything took one hell of a bounce from frame to frame. I'm going to go back and take the non-compensated version and splice that into that reel, so the thing will jump up and down. But that's not camera shake. Well, it is camera shake, but it's not film shake. It's the guy actually shaking. So that's why I go off and I take all the versions, go into a nonlinear editor, like Jim mentioned, splice out the bad stuff. And because, again, you're doing this frame by frame, you can literally stop exactly here, start exactly there, end exactly here, pick up again exactly there, and put it all together. It works out, quite nicely. And it all takes more time than it should, but these days, since I'm spending more time at home with the latest increase in COVID numbers, I've got time I wasn't expecting the last couple of weeks, so I'm trying to learn. And like somebody asked me, how long did one of these films take? And I said, well, on the Lake George film, I think I had about 24 hours into getting that 15 minutes of film. And it was insane, stupid amount of time. But I was also learning, how did this software work? How did that software work? And I've been taking notes. Don't use this filter with that filter. They don't work well together. Do this, change the film speed after you do this, not before it. So I've now been trying to get it down to a pattern. My scanner scans at almost real time. It scans at 17 frames per second, where again, the real speed should be 18. It's just a little slower. Again, easy to fix when I export the film. You know, do all the editing. When you get all the editing, then do the interpolation. You know, I've worked out a pattern here. If any of you guys have done any of this, you know, and you have other advice or anything, please give it to me before I go and do another bunch of reels. Then you go, oh, you should have used this. Go do it all over again. So, like I said, I am learning. I had known about Absinthe. The scripting of it scared the crap out of me, but then I saw what somebody did with it, and I said, oh, let me give it a try. Oh, I wish I hadn't mailed Kenneth's films back to him. So you can go download Absinthe, Kenneth. You guys, you NASA guys can figure the script out, or I can help you with it. It's actually turned out to be easier. It was hard getting it to work the first time, and then after that, it was like, why the hell wasn't I doing this all along? It's really a neat tool.
You recommend that over iFilm 9, which you said was sort of a GUI for it? There's enough different things you can do in Absinthe itself that it's worth it?
Yeah, you know, Absinthe does a better job of taking out dirt and scratches. I like that better. But as you saw in the reel where it said, welcome to New Mexico, sometimes it just does a bad job on some color compensations in that. So what I tended to do is, you know, run the Absinthe version, like the reel that I did on the 64 World's Fair had the music when they got to the New England Pavilion. That was 3 different things all spliced together, because one of them did a really nice job on this and did a really crappy job on that. The other one did a crappy job on that, but a nice job on this. So I just took all 3 tracks, threw them into the editor, and just said, use this track here, this track here, this track there. Again, they're all exactly the same length, and I can just mask certain sections of it and say, you know, drop this out, use this one. So if you look at my editor, it's going along, it's jumping up and down from track to track to track as I'm picking out the light one, the dark one, the well-exposed one, the one with too much motion compensation, and it's jumping all over. You run the thing, runs for 4 or 5 minutes, produces the final reel. So I'd recommend, frankly, since they're both free, experimenting with both and seeing what you like, and then you know, using the best of them.
On the Absinthe color problems, is that varying scene to scene? What I'm thinking is, if it does a good correction on one scene, can you freeze those settings and use them for the whole reel?
Yes, you have a whole, in the scripting language, if you again look at it and you say from frame 215 to frame 397, do not use this filter. You can say, you know, a not statement basically, and then run it for everything else. And then you can say, again, between frames 1 and 100, use this filter, 101, use that filter, 100 and 200, use both these filters. So the language does give you a whole thing. This is what they call a trim command. And you can say, trim this, and it doesn't actually cut the film. So some of the times the vernacular is a little misleading, but trim your virtual segment between here and here with the following parameters. So between here and there, I will do no color correction. And between here and there, I would do it at a level of 2. And here and here, I would do it at a level of 1.5. So yeah, if you get really involved, you can write this incredible script that just goes, you know, flipping back and forth between on and off. Like I said, it's absolutely amazing what the thing can do. I, on a learning scale of 1 to 10, I figure at about a 0.05 right now. But the free script that the guy, this video Fred, has done amazing stuff. I mean, really amazing. And for the most part, most of the films I've stuck into it have had to use 0 fiddling on it. Now that I see, for example, in the skies where it's more green, I've got to go back and figure out, again, frame by sequence by sequence, whether I do it in AviSynth or go to, Adobe Premiere and say, from here to here, change the sky, do this sort of thing. So I'm still learning that. And again, the free version of, the free version of Davinci Resolve does a very nice job. And then the other one's more expensive. It's a couple $100. But the free version of Davinci will probably do 90% what most of us want to do if we're not doing this for a living. It's actually, frankly, amazing that they provide that level of software for free. But I'll put links to all this on the recap of the talk. I do have Davinci. I'm trying to learn it. My friend Mark does this for a living, swears that he will teach me how to do it. I fear for Mark when he tries to make a statement like that, because he doesn't know how dumb I can be with some of this. But yeah, you can do amazing stuff. That's why I just wanted to get folks together today and try to encourage you. If you just get a scanner and you scan the films, you're at least preserving it from today. They're not going to decay any further, that sort of thing. But you're going to look at it and go, that's not so great. But you can get this like it's Film 9. Have you tried using it yet, Kenneth?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
I will.
Yeah, it's really easy. The scariest thing is when you go to Film 9, if you have Norton antivirus, it tells you bad site, don't go. No, it's not the case. It's one of these things they use some unsigned digital driver on something, and then it drives them crazy. It's safe to use, and the link I'll post will be there. It installs. The thing that's kind of interesting was written by a bunch of guys in France, and they do not ask you when you want to install it, what language do you want? It installs it in French. So the very first time you bring it up, it brings up a French menu, and you can use your high school French to say, oh, here's the setting, convert to English. I studied Spanish in high school. I said, okay, well, how do I do this? And you can go online and somebody says, just click this button on the top right. Okay, now it's in English. So, but it really installed, and it's really nice. The installer says, oh, you don't have AviSynth on your computer. Would you like me to install it for you? Oh, you don't have these codecs. Would you like me to install them for you? You don't have this. I mean, it basically does all the behind the scenes stuff, installs it, and then off you go. It's for, again, it does an amazingly nice job. Then when you go in at the very first video that you're going to put in, for some reason, it's going to come out upside down because they have a default. Their scanner was scanning everything with the optics reversed. So when they wrote the program, they just automatically reverse all the film. Well, if your scanner now scans everything the right way, it's going to come out upside down. So you go through and you say, don't invert, the film. And again, what film was this shot at? My scanner does 17 frames a second. I have to remember to go and say it was shot at 17. If you shoot on a Wolverine or a Kodak Reels, it scans it at 20 frames per second. So you've got to go back and just tell it all my film is at 20 frames per second. You don't even have to say all my film. This particular reel can be shot at any particular thing, but you can set a default of 20 frames per second, take your thing out of the Wolverine, throw it into the Film 9, and you can actually stack them all up for a processing queue. If you have a whole bunch you just want to process overnight, walk away, come back, and it does it. Does an amazing job that 99% of the people will be happy with what comes out of it. And it will interpret it up to 60 frames per second. It takes out the vertical scratches. It does, and that's what, again, I used on yours, Kenneth, to try to get it through. So, again, you can fine tune it. You can take the grain. You can say, I want to do 1 pass, 2 pass, 3 pass removal. How aggressive you want to get on doing dirt and everything. So, in Dan's mentioning Topaz Video Enhanced AI. It's interesting. I downloaded that as this, again, you can do frame and interpolation, stuff like that. I downloaded it, the demo version, because I have some other Topaz software that I really, really like. The Video Enhanced AI, I wasn't so thrilled with it. As you mentioned, it costs money, it's slow, And I found that the free stuff was doing as good a job in my non-professional point of view as that was. So I decided, I keep getting ads from all the time. How would you like to add this to your Topaz suite? I haven't convinced myself I needed to do it yet.
It's particularly good for tricky frame interpolation, such as snow, water, you know, where you have fine details and some frame interpolation stuff freaks out, or if you have very fast pans, it doesn't know how to do it. That does a somewhat better job than a lot of other software. But for general purpose stuff, yeah, Davinci Resolve or the free stuff can do mostly good stuff. I would say, yeah, it's handy if you have problem shots.
Yeah, like the video that I showed of the 64 World's Fair with the smoke ring right before it was one of the fountains. And that was all interpolated up to 60 frames per minute. And I didn't see any artifacts or anything in the water from there. So, again, if I was doing this for a living, or if I had the Zapruder Film and it was something of amazing posterity, I might go with it. Like I said, there is this piece of software. It's $10,000. That is the most amazing thing in the world. You can go and you can say a scratch like I showed on there. You go with your paintbrush and you go, here's the scratch, click, and it takes out that scratch for the entire rest of the movie. For $10,000, I'm going to live with an occasional scratch on somebody else's home movie of the Haunted Mansion, But I mean, there are amazing stuff out there in the studios. I worked back. Anybody remember the show, The Adventures of Lois and Clark? Superman show. I worked on that, and we were doing some of the early CGI stuff when we were using Silicon graphic computers. So we had the street where, on the back lot at Warner Brothers, it's a 2-story street, and we digitally made it a 6 or 8-story street. But one of the things that was really fun that we did was Superman flew in through an open window carrying Lois in his arms, and everybody was figuring, how the hell did you do that? I mean, he flew through the window. Where are the wires? Well, the window was only built like that. There was no top to it. We digitally added on the top of the window, and then we just used tools that said, here's the wire, went zip across, and it just followed Dean and, in as he came in carrying her, took out all the wires, we put on the top of the thing, and now all of a sudden he comes effortlessly through the window and puts it down. Well, Warner Brothers could afford that software to take out that stuff. Bill Cotter can't. So, there's some great stuff out there. Hang on just one second. There's some great stuff out there. But, there's also a budget that has to be adhered to. I mean, the scanner that I bought was around $8,500. I got a nice trade-in for my old scanner from the guy. When I first mentioned to the family what it cost, they were, but, hey, I could have gotten really bad. I could have taken up golf, right? Think how much I spent on that over the years. But I'm having a ball with it. And again, if people would like to see what can be done, I'll be glad for any of you, like I did for Kenneth. Send me a reel of film. I'll be glad to run it through there. Again, for most purposes, you do not want to go and spend this amount of money on a scanner. But there are labs all around the country that do have these scanners, and I can help put you in touch with them. And they'll do it for about $25 a reel if you have a bunch of them and you want them done that way, or if you just want to go off and do it. If I was only looking to just grab a few rolls of film, I'd go and buy one of the Kodak reels. The guy posted an online video comparing a video shot on the Wolverine Pro in San Francisco and the same thing shot on the Kodak reels, and the exact same price, and the difference was night and day. It was really, it's like, the difference between driving a 4-cylinder and 8-cylinder car. I mean, the definition of the shots, the color rendition is a lot better. It's still not perfect, but for $399.99 or whatever it is on Amazon, the Kodak reel seems to do a really, really nice job. And then you can take that video out, drop it in one of these free programs, adjust the oversaturated reds and oranges, take out some of the jitter and everything. And I think most people, for a $400 investment, would be pretty happy with the results.
One other thing we should mention, Bill, since a lot of us like to trash the U.S. Postal Service a lot, is that we use both ways, USPS priority mail, and it was fabulous going back and forth from Maryland to LA. I think we just used I used at least just regular priority mail, not express or anything, and it made it in 2 days, which, you know, nowadays is absolutely spectacular, and the tracking was good the whole way. And you know, you can get free boxes or envelopes at the post office to send it even, and you just pay that. You know, it's not super cheap, but it's better than a lot of options, and it worked very well.
Yeah, well, it did. I mean, Kenneth dropped it in the mail, and they said, you know, anticipated delivery is, you know, the Monday after the New Year. Well, no, it showed up here on Thursday or Friday. So I spent the weekend, you know, and Kenneth, you don't need to do them all at once. And I go, no, I'm into it. I got to go. And I have to publish my own crap. I've got hundreds of reels of film I bought over the last 20 years. But again, I was using Kenneth as kind of a learning curve and experiment. Put it in the mail, send it back to him the next day. Oh, look at that. Look what this can do. So, yeah.
It's funny also hearing you talk about the flashes at the end or beginning of every segment in some of your films.
Right.
My dad's films didn't have that. However, what they do have is shots of his forehead every time he thought the film was running out, and he'd turn it around and look at the little reader at the front end. So got shot after shot after shot of his forehead and a little lidded baseball cap.
Yeah. Well, one thing a lot of people don't realize about 8mm film, by the way, is that it was actually going through your camera at 16mm. Basically, you would shoot the roll of film, take the thing out, flip it over, and film it again. Then it would go to the lab, and in the lab, they would use a guillotine that would slice through the beginning of the film and you know, produce two different places, splice it together. What you end up with a lot then is people getting light exposure at the beginning and end of every 25 feet, that as they take it out, they weren't real careful. And Kodak would tell you, don't do this outside in bright sunlight. Well, you're standing at the World's Fair, right? What are you going to do? You take it out, you flip it around. So with the software that's out there today, and I've not done a lot of it yet, you can actually go and try to take some of that orange lens flare and the light exposure and mask it and try dialing that color down. A lot of times you can't really restore the color, you know, to something else because the orange is so bright, but you can dial down the orange in that masked out area so it's not quite as intrusive. So let me just, as long as I got you folks here 1 second, let me see if I can find something here real quick. Let me just, where did I put this? Oh, I know, videos. Okay, let me, I think I still have this set for screen sharing. So let me share screen. Let me start the movie first, 1 second. We mentioned this Lake George film just to give you an idea of what you can do with some of this stuff. Let me share screen. Bright orange, totally gone. Anyway, just talking over it. This is the film I mentioned. I had to take 200-something splices out of it. You can see the orange lens, light flare is still in there. I haven't taken that out yet. Now in this particular one, you can still see, I paused it here, there's a hair up in the gate. That was shot when the film was photographed. And it ends up throughout this guy's movie all over the place. The $10,000 software is really great. You can go through and just mask that out, and it will take it out for the rest of the reel. Then you also end up with stuff like the one that's on the right-hand side. That wasn't shot during the time it was photographed. It's a piece of hair or dirt or scratch that got into the film. Excuse me. It was cleaned, But you got to think, a lot of the stuff has been glued there and stuck there for 50 years. This film was shot in 1967. So again, I do clean it with the PEC solution, the PEC pads, but I do not get very aggressive because I don't want to do more damage to the film than not. The software has mitigated a bit. You can see that the thing is not a solid hair or line. It's sort of frayed around the edges because it's taken some of it out. But that's, again, where you have to just decide at some point in time, is close enough, good enough to just leave it in there. The whole thing goes, again, so fast that, you know, if you're going back, I'll just pop it back 1 second here, or try to. Here. Again, if we play it again real quick, whoops, come on, play. You're watching and watching and watching and watching. It went by real quick, right? So again, we've all gotten used to home movies. Mom and dad, when we watched them as kids, you know, sitting in the living room, they all had junk and dirt and stuff on them. At some point, you just have to say, you know, again, close enough is good enough. Or as I used to say, you know, when we were building submarines, close enough is good enough for government work. You know, you know. Of course, NASA, God forbid, Ken, I've been watching all the satellite deployment. Thank God you guys don't use my philosophy. But again, you can go crazy with this stuff. If it's really precious, it's the only film you have of your baby brother or something, you can go and spend all the time you want. You can take this film and export it into Photoshop. And with the healing brush in Photoshop, I could take out every single bit and scratch on everything of them. Knowing that there's 30,000 images on this one reel, I can assure you I am not going to go do that. You know, again, I can use a macro in Photoshop to use the dust removal tool. You know, I can do all sorts of things. If there was something, again, if you were restoring the original negative to Snow White, yeah, Disney can afford to pay 100 people all to do 1/100th of the film hand by hand by hand. I can't afford it, and I'm not about to do it. But if any of you have, yeah, Brock, go ahead.
Well, actually, this is kind of getting off the subject a little bit, but it's on what we have seen and done today. I wanted to make a couple of comments. When you were showing that Walt Disney World film, the one that was a souvenir one you could buy,
yeah,
I noted a couple of things in there that I'm surprised the Disney lawyers or whatever, somebody didn't say, no, you can't show that. And if you watched when they showed the Peter Pan ride taking off, the kids were in it. They stood up on the back seat and turned around to wave to their parents goodbye. Something they never let you do. You got to be in that seat, the bar down, and you don't move once that ride starts. And then I noticed also in the Jungle Cruise, the water probably had just been put in, wasn't all there. It was probably shot very early on, but you could see the framework for some of the elephants below the water line quite clearly.
Yeah,
and kind of get them surprised that they didn't say, hey, you know, you need to reshoot that or whatever, but apparently they didn't watch that stuff all that much. And one other thing, I'd like to address a question to Beth. Beth, I think I saw your name last night. Were you watching the Tammy Tuckney reunion show for the Great Movie Ride? Okay, it was at the very end, just as she was shutting down. I glanced over to the side and saw, I went, was that Beth? So
yeah, that was a great show. I sent the link to Bill and said, hey, there's this show with 12 or so Imagineers who worked on the Great Movie Ride, and Brock's one of them. So.
Well, yeah, and I was going to mention that. I didn't know if anybody else in our audience here would be interested in it. I was going to send you the link, but if Beth has already done it, that you could send it out to anybody that wants to watch it. It was a 2-hour show that was on YouTube. She does this, what do you call it, blog kind of show about Disney, a lot of stuff. She has a lot of Imagineers and other people that come in and cast members that she interviews for these different shows she's done. But this one was it was a bunch of us and kind of some of the main key players that had been involved in the building and development of the great movie ride, which is no longer exists now at the Studio Tour Park because it's been replaced. But to just go over how that was done and everything that was involved in getting the rights to movies and everything else, and it was a fun show. It was really, really interesting to watch. It's 2 hours broken into 2 1-hour segments with 6 people each as far as the interview, because what she uses to produce the show does not allow for more than 10 people at a time in a shared screen circumstance. So anyway, you can pass that on if anybody wants asks about it. And if Beth already sent it to you, then I don't need to send it.
I just pasted it into the chat here if anybody wants to grab it. Tammy does a great work. I helped her on some of her past shows of tracking some people down and that sort of thing. And she, what I like about it is she's really knowledgeable about, what she's talking about. Has done a bunch of research, and it's just, to me, not one of these fanboy types. Oh, let's get people to talk. I mean, don't you feel, Brock, she's really done her homework?
Oh, she has. I mean, she had all sorts of pictures and movies that were appropriate to it. That was like, how did she get a hold of that? I didn't know they let that out, but she got it somewhere. And the kind of questions that she put in that, she got us started going through the ride, but then she would insert questions about certain things that she had set up ahead of time. And they were it wasn't like she was just kind of saying, oh, wasn't this really nice or something? But they were very insightful, and obviously she had done a lot of research to set the thing up. And so anyway, she is really, really good at it. And I was very impressed with the way the whole show went off, and it was a lot of fun to do. So anyway.
Yeah, no, she does. And she's young. Yeah, she is hopefully a good career. So as long as she can keep finding us old farts to keep talking to, right?
Yeah.
But again, I appreciate folks joining for the first time back. If you do have a roll of movies you'd like to see what can be done with it, I'd be glad to do what I did for Kenneth. Just send it to me and, get in touch with me. We'll work out the details. Or go to Amazon, buy a Kodak Reels, give it a try. If you don't like it, send it back. I mean, it's kind of a no lose situation. Again, I do recommend, and I will put on the video, the Zoom page, a link. I do recommend cleaning the videos, that sort of thing. But scanning, it's one thing. The free software, like I said, it was a game changer for me. It really was. Getting Don, you had a hand up?
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was slightly off topic, but only slightly. I'm getting ready. When moving my mom to New Jersey, we found a box of 250 old slides he shot, developed slides from the Korean War and on. Some amazing history in there. A lot of them Dad wouldn't allow us to see when he was alive because he didn't like talking about his time in service. I was wondering if you can recommend a lower end scanner. I don't want to invest like $4,000 to scan these puppies in.
Yeah. Do you have any flatbed scanners or anything? What sort of equipment?
I have a flatbed scanner, just a brother scanner, the one that comes on my brother, scanner, printer, fax combo. Not a great scanner. That's about it.
Well, I'll tell you what I can do for you, Don, is I don't have the time to stick each of these in the Nikon and do, how many of them did you say there are?
250.
Okay. I can do them on my Epson, where I can go and do it at 12 at a time. Just basically put them on there, scan it, walk away, come back, do it. If you want to send them to me and give me a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it takes time to sit them on there, scan it, I'll be glad to do it for you. It's no sense buying a scanner. The trouble is you can get a really cheap scanner for $200 and you're going to get what you pay for. For the sort of family history sort of thing, there's places will go up and do it for you for $1 or so a slide. But hell, you've taken us down Route 66. I'm looking forward to someday having a root beer float with you in person. Send them to me, and I'll like I said, I'll stick them on the Epson. It does a really nice job. It turns out a 4800 DPI scan, and then you can adjust them at your end. I'll turn it on the dust removal feature. I won't turn on the color feature, and I'll let you do all the color editing and matching on your side.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a lot of time on it. I appreciate that.
It's sitting right here. As I reach out, I'm touching it now. When I'm doing something else, if it's sitting there scanning in the background, it's not a problem.
I appreciate it. I'll get in touch with you then and get them shipped off to you. But that's really nice because I was looking at, okay, well, no matter what scanner, it's going to take it one at a time. And I'd be here for a weekend before I went to color corrected and things.
Tom Brooks just mentioned something else that's of interest about local libraries. Some of them have slide scanners. I also understand that a lot of the LDS churches will have scanners, and they also, a lot of them have film scanners that they will let you use there on their premise. So again, if you're not sure what you have, you might want to check out your library. Thanks for mentioning, Tom. Or check out your local, Mormon church and see, because they're really, again, big into genealogy. People are finding that a lot of them have bought things like the Wolverines, and some others have bought some higher end ones that they will allow you to have access. I think most of them say it's like, an hour at a time. In an hour, you can get an awful lot of stuff scanned. And if you got to go back 10, 12 times, that's up to you. But again, check out your local LDS, site if there is one nearby, or check your local library and see if they have anything that can be done.
What would you say is the price point for a scanner that's actually worth using? I mean, I'm looking at all the Kodak $250 to $350 scanners, and I just have my doubts.
Most of them are not real good. Mostly what you want to look at is the resolution on these, and you have to look at what is the true optical resolution as opposed to a digital interpolation of it.
Yeah.
A lot of people get an Epson 600. I don't know what that does particularly for slides, but a lot of people seem to have good luck with that. And again, it's somewhere in the $500, $600 range. The one I have is a V700. They don't make that. They only make the V850 now, and that does everything. It does prints, it does slides, it does negatives. I mean, what I like is it does really big negatives. I can do an 8x10 negative on it. But I think that's running around $1,100 or so right now.
Yeah.
And I tend to do almost all my stuff still on the Nikons, and because it does a much better job on dust removal than even the Epson does. But there's some of the, like Wolverine makes a slide scanner. Frankly, not really good, because again, they use the same kind of camera that they use on the movie scanner, and it just does too much compression of the details. So I can work with you offline. If you can't find anything local, or if you find a scanner you're thinking about, send me the name of it, and I can see about the specs and stuff on it. You also want to look for a scanner that has what's called a high Dmax, and that's basically the amount of density that it can get through on the film, so that it just doesn't, when it gets to a black, does it take it as a solid black, or can it start seeing nuances of gray or shading within that black, so you can start taking really dark stuff and bringing stuff back out of it. And again, that's where some of the real cheap ones, that they don't have that particular capability.
Do they all mostly come with digital ice or something like it?
With what? No, most of the really cheap ones do not have digital ice. That's the big issue. The cheap ones are, you put it in there, it scans it, it photographs it, and it takes it back. There are actually a lot of people that don't want to get scanners because they take so long. It takes about 5 minutes to scan, with the ice features and everything else on the scanner. What a lot of people do is they get a DSLR attachment for their digital camera, put the the slide in an attachment, scan, click it, go on to the next one, go on to the next one, and you can go through it as fast as you can load it, push the shutter. But it also will photograph in great detail all the dirt and scratches and everything on it. But again, if somebody says, I got 10,000 slides, well, then you can go and scan all 10,000 of them and then say, here are the 200 that I really want to go and spend the time, effort, and money and get those professionally done. Not every slide needs to be done, to perfection.
Yeah. I've had, the easiest thing would be take it down. We have a good professional place here. I always, I wouldn't have this concern with you, but whenever I leave slides like this with somebody else, I worry about ever seeing them again. Because the mail off the place is never going to do that. The place where they send you a box, you put your stuff in, you send it back. But I've used digital scanning firms, and the results have been mixed. Sometimes I've been extremely pleased. Sometimes it's like, well, I could have done this better myself, just filming the screen with a projector. So,
Yeah, if you have a local place that you like, it's safer. And that is the thing Kenneth and I discussed. What do we do about his movies? So we sent them over and insured them in USPS priority mail, and they were here in 2 days. I made sure I didn't let the dog chew on any of them or anything, and got him. Our dog's great. Dog does not chew on anything. So shouldn't malign the dog. But again, I sent back to him insured, and one of the things I had done was I had sent Kenneth the digital scans of everything to make sure he was happy with them before I, sent anything back. If God forbid, the films had disappeared, he already had the digital, preservation of them if they had gotten lost on, the end back. But yeah, there is a risk,
Well, shipping them to you, I'm not so worried about. I'm not worried. I can get them to you or back. But if it's a firm I haven't dealt with, I've seen cases where they've gotten orders switched up and your stuff goes to someone else, or they just lose your order once it arrives, and then you're kind of sunk. So
yeah, there were people complaining about Legacy Box that they sent in all their home movies, and they got back, home movies of a black family, at a barbecue, and where was their mother's, wedding, and now the Legacy Box wasn't willing to work with them and tell them who the black family might be that they could get their movie, and I'm sure that family wanted their barbecue movies, and they didn't want the other.
Exactly.
It's a real mess when that sort of stuff happens.
Well,
So,
anyway, I appreciate you answering the question. I don't want to tie up the group's time too much, but it's my next big thing now that I'm done with the research project that we did last month. My next big thing is going through restoring these slides and then making some sort of book for my mom out of it. So it's just getting started on that. So I'll talk with you later on.
Yeah, I warn everybody, it's addictive as hell.
On the software side, Bill, I wanted to ask while we still had the group here, has anyone ever tried using the built-in iMovie software on a Mac? Does that do any of this, or is that just, my assumption is it probably doesn't do half of what you're talking about, but does anybody have any experience with that? Is it worth trying?
Which software?
Yeah, it's called iMovie. It's built into the Mac operating system. And I've used it for, clipping and trimming films and the like, but not too much else.
I mentioned it in the chat that I use the Samsung Ultra for that. It's the same type thing, but yeah, it's amazing. You can splice and crop and take out, scratches, and you can use the eraser and take out people or anything. It interpolates the. I can't believe it. To me, that software is worth $10,000, and it's free with the phone. And so I'm assuming that Apple has the equivalent of what Samsung has, but it is absolutely fantastic. Those flares that Bill had, you can just crop them out, and and then the phone itself has animal tracker and stuff. So you click on a cheetah like we did in Africa, a few months ago, and it just follows that animal in the frame, right? And it keeps it in focus. And I just can't even believe the software that's available on these phones nowadays. Yeah, you can.
Okay, well, I'll have to give that a try. I do know one of the reasons I haven't done as much with iMovie as I might is that the learning curve is pretty dang steep. Sometimes just trying to figure out how to do real basic stuff.
No. It is.
Well, I'm talking about
intuitive.
iMovie. I'm not talking about the Samsung. So
Yeah. Well, Samsung is so intuitive. It's just ridiculous. You can splice your movies, connect them together, add music, or like Bill added the sound of the projector. You can add any music you want. You can time the music, to meet your film. It is just so intuitively easy. It's just it's just ridiculous.
Does that only run on the S21? I'm a couple generations back on my Samsung.
I don't know. I think so because, well, I didn't, we bought this phone before our trip to Africa, right? So my wife she got the dumber down one and I got the Ultra, but I noticed she did have the same software I had for movie making and stuff. So I think so, but no, I don't know about going back before that. Because I didn't have the need,
right?
But definitely 20 Ultra. I mean, and this stupid things are free, right? We're T-Mobile, and it's just like we're 60. I'm 69, so they have the $55 plan. So we pay $55 a month and we each get a free Samsung phone, Ultra phone. So it's just no brainer. And that software, just like I said, I might just do Bill's movie just for the heck of it. Just the one that he sent us out a couple days ago, and just to see how it might change it.
Yeah, give it a try. I'd love to see what I can do on it. By the way, Don, when Tom was talking, I just looked up. The LDS does have a site in Austin. Unfortunately, it's currently closed due to COVID. But that's something to also consider. They have free scanners, desktop. I didn't see anything on their site about movie scanners, but you didn't need one. But they do have desktop slide scanners, print scanners, all that sort of stuff. So it says that they are. Where is it here? They're located 1000 East Rutherford Lane, Austin, Texas. Again, they have a website. It's the Austin, Texas Family History Center.
Yes, I know the place.
Yeah, and so they're closed right now due to COVID, but you might want to keep them in mind as another option, because then you don't have to worry about the mail. You can just walk right in and sit right down.
Yeah. I'm like I said, I'm less worried about the mail than what happens once a professional firm receives it, because they do so many of these. After listening to you, and you mentioned the Epson 600, which I had been looking at for a while, their new version of that is the 5550, which looks like it might not be a bad deal for $375. I'll have to look at that. The Epson 3, what is it? The Epson 550, V550. It has the ICE software in it, and the resolution actually seems reasonable. I'll have to take a look. But thanks. I'm putting that in my list, because if I can get to a free scanner, that would be better. So Austin, I know where the Family History Center is.
Yeah, to take a look at that. A free scammer, you could put up an indie GoPro or what you call it, GoFundMe. Kenneth, you might get a kick out of this. I was talking to Carol last night, totally off the subject of this stuff, but I was looking for something else. You know how you go down a rabbit hole, and came up with some guy that had done a Star Trek film, something called Let the Wrinkles of Time or something. Anyway, it's about a 15-minute film, and he's Captain Kirk, and he beams down to a planet and gets into a battle and everything. And it was shot down at the Star Trek sets down in Georgia, right? Not the ones that we were at, but I mean, again, they're the ones in Georgia look really good. And I just, looked to see if who was this guy? Well, the guy playing Captain Kirk was the guy that wrote it and funded it. And he posted that he spent $50,000 of his own money to make this movie. And, now he'd like to make another movie, but he doesn't have another $50,000. And as of yesterday, he was at $49,138,000 of donations to get to his next 50 to make his next movie. So, for all of us who have wanted to be Captain Kirk or, Science Officer Spock or something, it's amazing that people will give you $50,000 to go do it. I'm trying to think, how can I get people to help me buy that piece of software for $10,000 to get that out of the gate?
It's amazing sometimes what you can get people to support, start your GoFundMe account or whatever.
Well, just adding up the number of people here on the screen, and if everybody put in $500, no. I'll take all the hair out of all the gates for everybody. I'm sorry, I'm just not the sort of person that thinks about how to get strangers to give me $50,000 so I can work. So, well, thanks much. I'm not sure what next week's going to be. I'm trying to work on Disney and mid-century architecture. Again, if I can't get the other fellow online, I'm going to be doing it myself. 2 weeks from now, we'll see you for another visit down to Texas. You all will be visiting Hemisphere 68. And I hope everybody is staying home with the recent increase in numbers and everything. It's been pretty scary. And Carolyn, by the way, I'm sorry to hear that some of your in-laws or whatever were impacted by the fires.
Oh, it was my cousin and their extended family. They lost the entire farm and all their homes and everything.
Truly, truly terrible. When I saw those fires come up, I got in touch with Carolyn, because, you know, again, it's like somebody says there's an earthquake, you know, in California, everybody assumes it's under your house, but you just never know, you know, how much these things are spreading or going. And just watching that, it's just horrible. I mean, entire town's gone.
Well, it went from a point about 5 or 6 miles away from with the ignition point, which they're still determining, to this little town of Superior in about a half an hour.
Yeah,
We had 100, 110, 150 mile an hour winds.
it's insane.
And then, yeah, and then it took out whole neighborhoods, not just there, but in Louisville and parts of Boulder County. And I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to be driving out that way Monday. And we did have somebody come that did drive through there and said it was like looking at the devastation after a war. You know, it was just that bad.
What's amazing is you watch the video and gone, 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 gone. One house
Yeah.
standing, gone, 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 gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we had-
and you know, it's all these neighborhoods that have fire hydrants and everything. And you think, oh, they're going to firemen will be able to get in there. They couldn't keep up with it. They
No,
literally couldn't keep up with it. They was all they could do to get people evacuated.
I've worked several fire evacuations and
Yeah.
people cannot estimate how, I mean, we've had 80-mile-an-hour winds. I've not had to work in 110
Yeah.
sort of thing. But at some point in time, you know, the firemen just got to save their own lives. You know, a house can be rebuilt. You got to get out of, I mean, those things are insane.
Yeah.
Well, what was really difficult was to listen to dispatch, because you can listen to that on Broadcastify, and they're basically, okay, we're here. Oh, we have to go, you know, literally within a couple of minutes. And we listened to another fire like that last year where they were trying to get people out of homes and they would refuse to leave. And of course, they found them later.
Yeah.
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 So I've had to pound on people's doors and say, you got to go now. And I go, oh, let me get my stuff. No, now. And then
Yeah,
you come outside the house, look, and the fire is already in their backyard. They go, whoa. And then, of course, they
Yeah.
complain later. How come you didn't get to me earlier? Well, it wasn't there earlier. It just started now, you know? I mean,
Yeah, watching the videos of the fire spread is just, it's like it's alive. Yeah.
At times I've had to just tell people, look, if you want to stay, I'm going to the next house. You know, I mean, you know, I can't drag them out of there. If they want to stay, that's it. But, you know, at certain points, you just got to get back in the car and just go. So,
Yeah,
Oh,
we had
Tom,
another,
yeah. Tom, you
another
know
one
where
of our,
Louisville is. Well, by Superior is just like the town next door. You cross the highway and there's Superior. Yeah.
yeah, we had another one of our astronomical colleagues, Kevin France, Carolyn, you may know, who lost his entire house.
Where were
I-
they?
I presume near Superior. I don't know exactly.
Oh, okay.
But,
Yeah.
One of those things I found, speaking about fundraising, I found out that he lost his house because of a GoFundMe campaign that was put on their behalf to try to get them back on their feet. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. What just happened here?
Yeah, my cousins, they've raised something like 71,000, and his hospital bills are probably going to be, you know, just outrageous. So, because my cousin's husband went back to save somebody, and they both came out with bad lung damage and have been in ICU until today,
oh,
basically. So
that's
it
so
was,
sad.
and then Channel 9 picked it up, and the president found out about it. So they, all of a sudden, this money is piling into all these GoFundMes,
Well, I've
which
had
is
to
good. I mean, they're going to
evacuate-
need it.
I've had to evacuate 3 times, and it got down to 2 houses away from me one time and took out the trees in their yard. But I realized at a certain point in time, you got to get out. You just, you know,
Yeah.
with garden hose, you're not going to turn it back. And then you got to worry about whether your car is going to run, you know, because you can clog up your air filter real fast, and you know your car can stop. And somebody that Carol worked with, her husband or her son rather, to try to save his house, got really, really, really badly burned. And
Yeah.
so you see one of these things coming, the best thing to do is get out. But it's really hard to fight the thought, oh, if I just save 5 more minutes, I can save it.
Well, so what they did, what it happened in some of the places, the electricity went out almost right away. People couldn't get their garage doors open.
Yeah.
And, you know, in a panic, they haven't figured out that, you know, the panic bar, right? But so people were going into the homes, helping them put a little red handle to get out of there.
Yeah. Worst come to worst, I would just ruin the garage door.
Yeah, kick it in. Yeah, yeah.
Well, great. Well, on that happy note, we will hopefully
Thanks,
see you all in 2 weeks, and
right.
or 2 weeks for San Antonio, next week for something to be discussed. See you all soon. Have a great week.
Bye.
Great to see this again. Bye.
Bye.